You are about to watch a video between a Christian and a Muslim where they discuss their opinion on worldview, society, and family, and their experiences with each.
So my name is Irfan. I am Indonesian-American. So my dad's white American, my mom's Indonesian. I grew up half here and half overseas. And yeah, I'm a Muslim and I'm excited to be here talking to you today.
So my name is Josh Prince, serve as a pastor for about 5.5 years now. I'm married. Jess and I have been married for almost 17 years. We have 3 kids.
Before we start, say in the name of God, Bismillah. And there's a prayer that we make before you speak to the people, to the public. Say, Rabbi shahri sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli, which is the prayer of Moses before he spoke to the Pharaoh. So he said, "Oh Lord, my Lord, open up my chest and make easy my affair and like loosen the knot in my tongue so people will understand my speech."
All right.
So.
The first question we'll get going on, I actually didn't send this initially. Is worldview a term that you've heard before? And how would you define it if you put it in your own words?
I would say what you hold to be true about the world and how you use those axioms, those like rules that you hold to be absolutely true, and how you interpret the rest of the world within those boundaries.
Worldview, I think just invert it. It's our view of the world, which can be informed by all types of things, informed by reality of what we experience, by what we see, by what we feel, by what we hear. It can be informed by how we're raised, philosophies, or theologies that we learn. Obviously, as a believer, I think my worldview is definitely led by, directed by, helped by my understanding of Scripture. Worldview as a whole, I think it's just how we view the world around us.
What are some key elements of your worldview? So what do you think is like your most firmly held belief?
There is a chapter in the Quran called Surat al-Ikhlas, and it's called the sincerity. That's the translation, and it goes, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. So this is in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Say, He is God, the one. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد, the self-sustaining, the completely independent. لم يلد قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد. He was not given birth to, nor did he give birth. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, and he is not comparable to anything. So this is the belief called Tawheed, which is the oneness of God, the absolute monotheism and belief in our Creator, who has no partners and no equals. And we situate ourselves in that world where the absolute one God exists, and he speaks to us and conveys to us what we need to know. And we kind of understand that with our logic, with our intuition. And once you kind of accept that fully, then you operate within that worldview completely, right? You submit yourself into this worldview, and you believe everything that was revealed from the scriptures, from the messengers, and you follow those laws, and you follow those principles and morals and everything.
Let's say there was a Christian that was asked the exact same question, what their highest value is. What would you guess would be their response, just based on Christianity and what you've heard, their most firmly held belief?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that it is still a belief in God, but it would be a belief in God as you guys understand God. So that would be like, the Trinity and this kind of belief. It would be acceptance in this belief and acceptance of like the most important tenets of that belief and the creed of kind of like you said about in order to earn that grace. I think that grace would be the number one thing that you're aiming for. So the number one value would be whatever would earn you that, right?
Yeah. The question, if you earn it, or is it what he did?
Well, as a believer, my highest value is the Lord. Belief in God, that He is the creator of all things, the sustainer of all things, that He gives life and purpose and meaning. I believe that I exist for God's glory, to live for Him, and to enjoy life after this with Him. That's what informs everything. Hopefully, it should be informing everything.
If a Muslim was to be asked the same question, what would you guess would be their highest value or most firmly held belief?
Oh, I think anything that has to do with Islam, with the teachings of the Quran, with what Muhammad has encouraged them with, or any other prophet that they hold in high esteem. But I think everything is probably informed by that.
When we think about like the biggest problems in the world today, what do you think can solve? What are those issues, and what do you think can solve them?
Yeah, so if you take a look at the society,
Mm-hmm.
like let's get an example, right? So let's say you have a society. Let's just say it's like the worst possible society you can imagine. Let's say, they're completely like almost lawless. They're like a bunch of gangs, basically gang mentality. Oh, you hurt my member, I'm going to like go take revenge regardless of who's right. I'm going to, oppress the weak people in the society, take the rights from people. Might is right and all this stuff, like burying the women even alive when they were born. Like this is actually the society that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was sent to. So basically it's the worst possible society, the most backwards. When he spread the message of believing in God, it actually completely turned the society into like the complete opposite. Became the most like virtuous society that was able to become a civilization based off of the values that the message brought. So the answer to that would be, if society can be taken from like the worst possible darkness into the the greatest possible light, then this is the answer that can be applied to anywhere on the earth. And you can kind of see this when you go to like the holy lands of Islam. You have people every single walk of life, every race, every ethnicity, every job, and they're all united in one purpose, and they all are in harmony with each other. There's no like there's no people drawing lines between each other, right? I would say that it was the belief in God that united everyone. So it's kind of that shared belief that you hold yourself to that belief above everything else. Mm-hmm. Like no matter what somebody sitting across from you, no matter what their situation is, no matter how they identify themselves, both of you know that you both believe in God, you serve the same God, and you're on this earth for the same purpose. You're working together at the end of the day. So that's what kind of, I think, would solve the problems, because the problems become something you transcend, right? When you both have the same belief. Yeah.
Let me further that then, because that's interesting. You say belief in God, that being what brought the people together. Do you think it matters which God that is?
Yeah, for sure. Because so it does help to believe in God in general, but when you kind of drill down into it, the beliefs start becoming a little bit different, and so you're not really on the same page anymore, right? If that makes sense. For example, the greatest possible like good thing you can do is believe in God, right? And the worst possible thing you can do is associate partners with God, because now you're giving the rights of God to someone else, and that will actually allow that something else, whether it's like your desires or like a idol or something, you can act in a way that you think that you're following God, but you're in fact following something like some like other path, right? And that can cause corruption and issues in the society, right? Yeah, if that makes sense.
How do you think we should deal with coexistence when people do not believe in the same God? Say that you have a community where you have many atheists, you have Muslims and Christians. In that sort of a society, how do you think, with Muslims being a majority in this situation, how should the Muslims deal with those people?
Yeah, so this is in the Quran as well, that and in history, throughout history, you can see that God does not لا ينهاكم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا ينهاكم الله على الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم في دياركم. Okay, I might have messed that. I messed that up completely. God is saying that God does not forbid you from the people that don't fight you, from the people that don't drive you out of your homes, and you should be righteous and just to them, and God loves those who are just.
Gotcha.
So no matter what you believe, you have to, people have their like rights and dignity as people, and you must be just and righteous amongst people, no matter like unless that they're actually harming and fighting you. Then you have to defend yourself and everything, right? So.
I mean, the biggest issue in our world today, as a believer, I think, is sin. I know it's sin, right? Sin causes all kinds of issues and challenges and difficulties. It's the cause of war. It's the cause of, murder. It's the cause of hate. It's the cause of discrimination. It's the cause of everything that is negative in this world. And so as a believer, at the same time, I believe that God has brought reconciliation and renewal and redemption, and that comes through belief in Him, belief in His Son. And so, you know, as a Christian, I believe that God is the solve for everything, the resolve for everything as well. It's belief in Him, it's trusting in Him, it's pursuing holiness, living as He desires and intends us to live. So that plays out in how I treat other human beings that I agree with or disagree with. It affects how I treat my spouse, how I treat my kids, how I treat people in my immediate surround and people on the other side of the world. Everything is informed by what I believe about God and my belief that God can solve the problems of every single person in this world, which is once again the problem of sin.
Moving now towards your experiences and friendships, how important have those friendships been in your life, and how have you seen those people that you surround yourself with impact you?
Yeah, wow, this is really important. So righteous company is definitely, there's a saying, there's a hadith, I believe it's a hadith, that you are on the religion of your close friends. So no matter what you think, oh, like I'm just hanging out with them, I'm not following their, their beliefs. If they're people that are part of like the quote unquote wrong crowd and you're just kind of having fun, actually you will rub off on them, right? Or they will rub off on you. So it is people, I've seen like a huge change when I went from kind of like I would say my hometown is kind of like a smaller environment, and I was like kind of seeing the same people and everything. But when I moved to like Austin and Dallas, I could see so many more people, so many religious people, and no hate on those guys, but really there's a huge like change in my life, and I would attribute it to the crowd that you were around, because it's just steel sharpens steel. It's really important to
Yeah. So where would you say hometown was for you again?
College Station.
College Station.
Yeah, I'm just throwing you under the bus. It's amazing community. It's more small, so you get less of the
Yeah, my dad went to A&M, but they definitely do have a cult stereotype there. But just like anywhere else, Austin, A&M, you can find your circle and you will find all sorts of types of people. So it just depends who you end up around.
Yeah, and you just need like a few, like a close circle. Like you don't need a huge crowd of people to get that effect. But it is definitely helpful if you have a community effect, right? You have if you have more of a network, it's definitely different than the close circle, but I think the close circle is the most important.
The friendships vary. I would say, believer to believer, the iron sharpen iron type relationships a bit key. They help hold me accountable. They inspire me and encourage me in the faith. They help me to consider how I can be a better husband or dad or pastor or just, human being in general. And even more so as a believer. I think also, feeling the necessity of making sure I have relationships with people who don't necessarily agree with me, agree with what I believe about the Lord is really important as well. And so those relationships have shaped me to understand, where people are in their beliefs, where people can be and what they think about God, and how a lack of belief in God, both affects how they are as a husband or a dad, or very similar areas of responsibilities that I have. And so that's helped as well. I think culturally too, though, having diverse friendships with diverse backgrounds and ethnicities and all that kind of stuff, it helps me see beyond what I've just kind of always come to know, what I was raised in. And so that's great. I mean, it helps kind of move us out of a bubble that can sometimes be, a big safety area for us, to really extend beyond just what is comfortable, beyond our normal thinking. So all those friendships, whether it be, Christian to Christian, non-Christian to Christian, all of them shape me and help me in some way for sure.
All right. So that's friendships, but now family. One question is if you have one, you do. So you do have a family. What made you want to start one?
I was really bored and lonely and had too much time on my hands. No, I desired to be married even from a young age. And for a lot of times it steered my identity and my desire. And so, that I had to work through that. But I met my wife when I was 22, just knew very quickly that she was going to be my wife. She agreed to that, which was good.
It's usually helpful.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to have someone that I could love and encourage. You know, the joy of being a husband is getting to wash my wife in the Word, of getting to build her up and, you know, spur her on in the faith, of affirming who God created her to be and encouraging her towards that. It's just a great blessing. And so I love that as a responsibility. I always wanted kids as well. And so, you know, they really are a blessing. As challenging as fatherhood can be, it really is a joy. It's a joy when you see your kids come into their own, especially in the faith. That just, I didn't know that was, I didn't know that I would experience that until I was experiencing it. And I don't think I would have ever imagined the joy I would have in seeing that. I think in a lot of ways I, you know, looked forward to seeing my kids come to faith and expressing that faith on their own. But there's a pride that goes into that. That's really, really special. But yeah, I wanted kids. I wanted to be able to, you know, continue on the legacy. Not that I have one, but bring kids into this world that, you know, can honor the Lord, live for the Lord, and, you know, I can impress upon. And so that's a great blessing for me.
Yeah, so definitely would want to have a family. I think that there's this principle in our religion where once you die, your actions stop. Like you're not able to earn good deeds anymore. But except for a few things, which is ongoing charity that you're doing, and one of the other ones is your children that will make prayers for you and do good things in your name, right? So it's kind of what you leave behind. So one of the greatest things you can leave behind is a righteous child that will do good things based on what you taught them, and then continue that forward, right?
Okay. Have you figured out the girl part of the family yet? No, just making fun of you. Good. All right. Now, if you have a job right now, where are you working, and where do you hope to work down the line occupationally?
Oh wow, interesting. Yeah, I work as a software engineer at Fujitsu, great company. You know, I see myself working there for a while, learning as much as I can, and you know, we'll see whether I can take that into, you know, a kind of a business of my own, like prerogative, where I can try to make a more positive impact, or, you know, do some entrepreneurship inside of the company and see like what benefit we can bring from that. But definitely the idea is as much positive impact as possible. And this is where earlier I was talking about a big network. You can get the energy from other people doing positive things, and it gives you opportunities to participate in that as well. I think from being part of that community, I've had a lot of ideas and opportunities of, okay, I can actually do this as well. This would be a big positive impact. So yeah, it's definitely maximizing the positive impact using my skill set, right? It's a form of worship, right? So we're commanded to be the best we can to people, to be a strong believer is better than a weak believer, but there's good in both, right? So we're trying to be in a position where we can help other people, right?
Yeah.
So I see this as a form of worship, that I'm doing this for the sake of being in a position where I could, you know, help people, whether it's like my family, whether it's, you know, providing, whether it's like a charity, whether it's direct positive impact as the fruit of my work and everything. Right?
Yeah. Bible actually says if you don't provide for your family, you're worse than an unbeliever.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. So providing for your family, dude, no matter where you're working, the provision for your family first, right?
Very important, yeah. Exactly.
Very important for sure.
My occupation, I had to rework some things, if I'm honest, because so much of my identity went into my job. And so when I moved out of student ministry per se, it was really challenging for me, because everything that I identified for the most part, besides being a husband and a friend and a son and a brother, was I'm a student minister. And so so much of my value and my worth were founded in that, in an unhealthy way. And so I had to move beyond that, because that became such an identity that I wasn't necessarily willing to listen when the Lord moved me from student ministry to, you know, being a small groups minister and missions minister. And then it also kind of held me captive when I sensed that God was calling me to pastor. Well, I didn't want to pastor. You know, I ran from that. I denied God and told him that he wasn't thinking wisely. Like, I'm not the guy, God. Anybody but me, probably. But I love that God has given me the opportunity to pastor. That calling is unique. It's weighty. It requires dependence on the Lord, and I'm grateful for that. I mess up often because I am not the great shepherd. I'm an under shepherd. But there's just something beautiful and unique in getting to pastor, getting to lead people, getting to motivate them in living out the gospel, and being able to build them up and walk with them through tragedy. It's difficult, but it's so redeeming. It's so unique and special. Just as much as getting to walk with them when they experience this great blessing. One of the coolest things for me is seeing people who maybe shied away from sharing their faith or have never experienced the joy of leading someone to faith. When they experience that, I mean, the joy that they have is incredible. The fact that they see that everything that held them captive and caused fear and trembling and really disobedience for such a long time in their life, when they overcame that because they finally surrendered to the Holy Spirit's opportunities and giftedness in them, it's been really special to see. Like, seeing people lead others to faith, seeing them baptize those that they've evangelized. Like, it's really, really special. So yeah, that's the joy I have in the occupation. The second side of it was what?
That's pretty much it. Just, how important your occupation has been to you in your life and how you would describe it. But you could also talk to balancing family life with that occupation as you're pastoring. How has that influenced your family?
Oh yeah, that's an ever-going challenge, an ongoing challenge as far as balancing it. Because once again, right, identity in what we do, it's a lingering problem for all of us, whether you're an accountant or a pastor. And so, balancing that of making sure that my identity doesn't become my children's identity. My children are children of a pastor. They're not pastors. They're not pastor kids. I've had to work with my kids to even understand that. Like, who I am does not define you. And that's I hope that there's a lot of definitions I have in my life that they will allow themselves to be defined by, but who I am doesn't necessarily define them. Mm-hmm. But balancing that, making sure that I prioritize my family, that's my first ministry. And so, God's going to, as a pastor, God's going to ask me how I led the church. There's an accountability system based in that. But I think the first thing that God's going to ask me is about my life and then about how I led my home. I just really believe that. And so, how I lead and love my wife, as Christ loved the church, I get to love her. How I lead and guide my kids, is a huge blessing. And so I need to prioritize them. I cannot be the pastor that I need to be if I'm not the husband and the father that I'm supposed to be. And ultimately, I can't be the husband or the father or the pastor I'm supposed to be if I'm not, the man of God that I need to be.
So we kind of going backwards here because I asked about your occupation, but in education, moving towards where you've learned and your experience with whatever environments you've been in. That could be religious education, like you mentioned, or places like college and high school. For you, what does it mean to be educated through those places you've been? If you had to put it in your own words, an educated person, how would you describe them?
Yeah, an educated person, really, the most important knowledge is the knowledge of God, right? Because there is a principle in our religion, which is actions are by their intentions, right? Innamal a'malu binniyat, right? So the idea is, no matter how educated you are in like worldly matters, if you're doing it for like the wrong reasons, if you're actually like without even realizing you're kind of having a negative impact in the world without your understanding, right? This could kind of waste all your effort, right? So the most important knowledge is the knowledge of God, what's right and wrong, and off of that, your kind of knowledge that brings benefit. It's like kind of like that's the fruit of the base of the tree, and the rest of your knowledge is kind of coming out as like fruits that benefit other people, right?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have one of my favorite pastors. I remember he always says that what you think about God is the most important thing about you. Yeah. So I would definitely say maybe normal people
in Dallas, or the majority here would say education. They're thinking very academic, right? Like your maths, your sciences. But I would agree that God is definitely what I want to know about the most, or at least understand who He is, or else I don't know what I'm doing with my purpose. So yeah, I definitely agree there.
Addendum to that, actually, there's another principle in our faith, which is called husna dhon billah. So it's the having positive opinions of God, because God is to you as you think of Him. So if you think that God is someone that's, you know, vengeful and et cetera, then you might see that in your life, that you know, that might, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you always have hope in God, and kind of you think good things about God, and that, oh, you're being blessed and you're grateful, then this will actually be a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. And it's actually the tricks of Satan to kind of make you lose hope in God, right?
Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting. So I think you're right. What we think about God, it will set our passion in our lives. It will set our direction. And if you're thinking of God in a pessimistic way, you're probably going to be a pessimistic person. But my question to add to that thought, how do you deal with instances for your own faith, and everyone should be critical with their scriptures, where you do see maybe violence or warfare, and also with Muhammad? This is something people talk about a lot. So just how do you deal with still keeping that right view of God where it's positive, but also being honest with your scriptures? I'm not making any claims, but I'm asking, do you still leave yourself with that open mind where you could realize the God of X, the God of Y, is actually not positive?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so this is where a very important principle, which is non-contradiction, is one of the challenges in the Quran. Is that if this is not from God, then you would find lots of contradictions in it, right? So, okay, it's a challenge actually, and if we're being challenged, we need to take up this challenge. We need to actually look in the Quran and find, okay, is there any contradictions? This is something that we're basically told to do, right? We have to be intellectually curious and consistent, and you know, this is a quality of the believers, to seek the truth, like Abraham did, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so if you were to come across, like, you know, let's say you see on YouTube somebody saying, oh, like, look at this passage, and you can see
someone like me.
Yeah, of course.
With you,
No. It's a good thing to be kind of like being able to critically think. Critically think is, what if I'm wrong? Basically, right? That's what will lead to a stronger position, right? You're finding the truth. So yeah, of course that you would kind of say, okay, if there are any contradictions, that means that the Quran would not hold to be true, right? Because that's a direct challenge.
Yeah.
So what a Muslim would then do would go and find out, do some more research, and get to the bottom of the matter, the actual truth and brass tacks of whatever it is. And you do this objectively, right? And what you'll end up doing is, if the Quran is true, then you'll find that the truth holds. That once you actually you sincerely ask for guidance to God, right? And you look into the truth, whether it's true or not, then you will find the answer, right? And then if what you're believing is true, it'll be right every single time you do that, and that will strengthen your faith. So this is actually a road of strengthening your faith by being open-minded, which is kind of maybe that's kind of seen as a contradiction. Like there's a popular belief that maybe like atheists might have, like, oh, religious people are like closed-minded, right? Because if you question your belief, then it will be weakened, because you're taking all these arguments and everything, and this will hurt your faith. But actually, as a Muslim, you believe that this is the opposite. The more you open your mind and the more you seek the truth, you do it in the proper methods, you ask people of proper knowledge, you do everything the right way, and you're sincere, then you'll actually strengthen your faith, right?
Really, I saw education as a requirement to get a full-time job, especially in ministry. And so I definitely squandered opportunities that God gave me to learn, to grow when I was in college, that I regret now. Hindsight is a punk, because it can really cause regret sometimes. But You know, my education at DBU, and then my master's work at BH Carroll, and then finally where I am now is soon to graduate with my doctorate from New Orleans, right? All of those have been huge educational elements. I mean, you know, institutional education for me, that's really, really important. But beyond that, I've learned at the feet of godly men and women who have pastored, who have ministered in all different types of capacities. I mean, my youth minister and my dad are probably two of the most influential men that have, you know, probably had the longest impact on my life. In addition to them, God's blessed me with mentors along the way. Yeah, I have a good friend who is about, you know, 20 years older than me. And I just respected the way that he loved his wife, the way that he loved his kids, the way that he worked, but more importantly, the man of God that he was. And so I went on a DTR, define the relationship lunch with him one time. I said, listen, I just want to learn from you. I just want to be your friend. I want to be your shadow. I just want you to teach me everything that you can about who you are and, you know, why you are the way that you are. And so, yeah, institutional education definitely formed me and helped me. But at the end of the day, some of those, you know, relationships have definitely educated me and informed me. I've been able to learn at the feet of pastors that, you know, are wise and humble. And I've been able to learn from other men who are just godly men who, you know, lead lives of holiness and righteousness. And, you know, it definitely impacts me.
Okay. Now, still on education, but seeing what we prioritize and what is important for education, would you say social media is an important factor, especially today?
No, I think it gets in the way of a lot of things. I think that there's an interconnectedness there that is special and unique. I don't like social media is of the devil, you know, but it can be a good thing, and it has been a good thing. But I think if we let social media be our informative piece, it's just not good, especially given as polarizing as social media can be. I mean, I just think of posts within the last 24 hours that have polarized us, and it's, you know, social media is filled with opinion. I look back to the good old days of Facebook where, you know, it's just about life. Like, it's not about policy. It's not about politics. It's you know, it's just about updating people. It's about keeping touch with people. And so in that regard, I think social media can be a good thing. But I think for what it's become, it can be a distraction. And I think that we can put way too much on something that really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
But this is interesting. So connecting on social media, like how specifically would you say that?
So, like, you know, maybe you would encourage some people to be on YouTube as they have these sort of questions, but there's other people that would say stay away from social media far as you can.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm curious, maybe like, you know, a good way to answer this question might be, what would you let your kid explore once they are our age? I understand when they're kids, but like teenagers and they start to have these questions, how important do you think letting people explore social media is for learning now?
No, definitely. This is something that was maybe specific to me, but I definitely think that you should not try to shelter your kid past what is like unreasonable. You know what I'm saying? So there's like stages to it, but you want to expose them to the realities of the world so they may kind of come to terms with it, right? And they can become you know, capable of, I don't know, understanding rather than just being like blind faith or whatever, right? So I would say that, yeah, you should definitely look at different arguments online and everything. Once there's a process to that, you can't jump into it without having a proper foundation of you know, like for example, if you're a kid, you would just be confused if you jump into like the, you know, the high levels of math. You might end up hating it because it's just so you don't get it, right? So you have to kind of do it the right way, but definitely you should be open to you know, whatever voices you might find on social media, as long as they're not like, you know, just really kind of, you'll see immediately if they have, I don't know, like kind of no substance and it's kind of just harmful content. That's a different story, but like sincere, kind of worthwhile things, different perspectives, definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, thought-provoking content. Yeah.
No brain rot, you know.
Yeah.
No, I mean.
Yeah, we don't do any of that.
No. Actually, something interesting is I do think that my child, you know, of course, I'll keep thinking about this as I grow older, but
Yeah.
my current thoughts is that they should see it for themselves somewhat and see that make the decision themselves that they don't want to participate in this, right? They don't. It shouldn't be like me forcing to take away the like whatever brain rot it is. They should be like, it's like a stage of development. You can't take away their ability to develop in their stages of development, right? They need to experience it for themselves, right?
Okay.
I don't know if that
Gotcha.
answered it.
No, yeah, that is really good. So now, last couple questions. Do you think you have certain habits that have helped you become educated and get the knowledge you have? So, like maybe any habits in your life growing up, perhaps social media was a big part, or your reading of the Quran. Like, what would you say have been those habits that have helped you in your education?
Yeah, going to the masjid was number one. So, because, yeah, of course, going on YouTube, there's a lot of amazing people there to learn. But really, at the end of the day, what sparks it, usually if you ask people and they kind of trace backwards, it's really people that will, like real life people that will inspire you. And by kind of seeing them regularly, by, doing the things that God told you are going to increase you, by following that and being with the people that also follow that, the inspiration from people that have gone through the journey. So there's this idea of called like isnad, which is like chains of narration. So my teacher got not just knowledge but mannerisms, character, how to live, and like this kind of spark of like inspiration of being like a follower of God, right?
Yeah.
And this is passed down, like to person to person to person to person, right? You're kind of like paying it forward, and being part of that chain and passing it down as well, is something that's very it's very important, right?
Yeah, a lot of heritage there.
Yes, because actually lots of these chains people directly can name all the way to the Prophet, right? So it's like, very authentic and very I don't know, because it is important, I agree, to get your knowledge from like, different sources, books and online and everything. And I would attribute that like primarily like the actual, material knowledge that I have, but definitely the
core of your worldview, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Like the very small but integral like piece like that holds it all up is definitely like the people, right?
Yeah.
I think practicality has been probably the prevailing thing that has helped me. The classes that impacted me the most institutionally, while I was at DBU, while I was at BH Carroll, now I'm at New Orleans, have been those classes that are so highly practical. I've learned a lot, and I've grown in understanding of science and religion and all of that kind of stuff. But to put it into practice is so special. It's so unique. I think that have probably been the classes that have blessed me the most. I think it's the same with kind of the educational side of just the relationships I talked about earlier. Right? Those have impressed me and impressed upon me because there's just immediacy to it. I get to apply those things quickly, and so that's helpful.
Now, last question here. Earlier I said I wouldn't ask you to prove Islam in 5 minutes. Similar, I'm not doing that, I promise.
Okay. Yeah.
But why do you believe your worldview to be true? So I'm not asking you to prove it, but just if you gave a short summary of what's been compelling to you most on clinging to Islam, why do you believe or have that worldview?
Yeah, so this is actually another question that I wanted to ask you guys, so I'd like to see your answer on this.
Yeah,
just because like this is I think this is something that is the most important question, because at the end of the day, if you claim to be open-minded, if you claim to be open-minded and you claim that this is your reason for it being true, and that reason is credibly challenged, then you should be able to change your mind, right?
Yep.
So this is kind of, if you ask other people, oh, why do you believe this to be true? This is where you start, because if they believe something to be true, and you can have a conversation about that, like that's the only way that you can actually kind of change your mind, right? So I think that's why this is the most important question to ask, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're never going to kind of like be, I don't know, change someone's mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you'll just be stubborn. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, this is how I see it, right? Lots of times people criticize, and I'll get to the answer, right?
Yeah, you're good. Take your time.
You know, they criticize, I don't know how to explain this, like some aspect of
Yeah.
the religion,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, this is false, like this is not falsifiable. Why would you believe in this religion, et cetera, et cetera. This is an atheist type standpoint, right? Like, oh, do you like? It's like, oh, it's kind
When
of
they're
a
like
fair...
objective about their views. That yeah.
No,
there's
it's
no
like,
way.
let me give you an example.
Yeah.
For example, like, oh, like, would you believe that, you know, your prophet would like ascended to the 7 heavens, or would you believe like, oh, like, how could you believe that this is, or he split the moon, like he did these miracles?
They act like it's impossible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, this is you know, unfalsifiable. You can't go and prove this because et cetera, et cetera. And some reason I'm like, well, yeah, that's okay. If it's unfalsifiable, that still doesn't challenge my belief, because that's not the reason that I believe my religion to be true. Like, you haven't actually touched any of these reasons, so there's no reason for me to change my mind. Like, this is kind of a non point for me.
Yeah, for you, it's not just those claims. So what is it then?
Yeah. So so the reason, the number one reason for Islam, I believe it to be true, is the proof and the miracle of the Quran, right? So the Quran is basically it gives a bunch of falsifiability tests and miracles and everything, and it just proves its own existence, if that makes sense. I mean, it proves its own veracity. So for example, if you have like if you could say, many people claim that religion is like a circle of faith, right? Like, you're kind of circular argument, exactly. So what my claim is, and the reason I believe Islam to be true, is because there's like a kind of like a circle. You could say, oh wait, you say one of the sayings of Islam is, we hear and we obey God, right? We submit to God. Oh, if you're submitting to God, that's kind of like a circular argument. You'll never be able to challenge it. I was like, no, there's an entry point into the circle. And that's why I believe it to be true, because from whoever you are, whatever place you come from, whatever background you come from, or whatever beliefs you have, you can go from A to B to C to whatever, and you can arrive at the conclusion of Islam completely objectively and from many different angles. And that's why I believe it to be true, because of those reasons. And that would be like, if you were to try to change my belief, you would challenge those reasons.
Okay.
So you would challenge like the veracity, like the authenticity of the historicity of the Quran itself, the Quran, because we take it word for word to be the word of God, so you can really stake yourself on it. So we believe, okay, so this is the preservation of it, right? Secondly, like the falsifiability test in the Quran, right? So there's
Can you write another book like it? I know that's one.
yeah, there was you would find many contradictions in it, and like the claim of the Prophet, and there's just other claims. Like, for example, the claim of the Prophet, the Quran says that, I'm not actually sure if this is one of them, but like, this is something that you know, is of compelling evidence, I would say, is that the Prophet, he was unlettered. You know, he never used to write. He never had this education, and then he was able to produce over 23 years this completely consistent, claiming to be the word of God, like this completely, you know, book that would be, you know, please give another explanation for how it could exist, right? Like that it actually tracks and makes sense in the same way. Like the like, if you look at all the evidence, the only conclusion that you could reasonably, rationally come up to is that this is actually the word of God, right? And I mean, I've only listed a couple of the you know, and you'd have to really do your own research.
It's good to be precise. So you're
Yeah.
talking about the Quran and what it is about the Quran that would be key for you. So that's good.
Yeah, like, and you can drill down and look into the miracles of the Quran, and the miracles, for example, there's also prophecies of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And like, for example, there's like there's straight up prophecies, like in surah called Ar-Rum, the Romans, like at the start of it, it's like, oh, this is you know, predicting what would happen between the Romans and the Persians. In, you know, right now this is actually happening. They just you know, the Persians won, but then in like 3 to 9 years the Romans are going to win. And it's like, you know, it's kind of like the Eskimos are trying to like predict what will happen between, you know, Russia and US, and completely accurately and stuff. It's like, there's tons of things like this that you can look more deeply into, right? And at the end of the day, you really need to know the Arabic language to really appreciate the magnitude, how revolutionary and like impossible it could be to create, it's like called a linguistic miracle. So each prophet had their own miracles, like the prophet Jesus, Moses, peace and blessings be upon him. They had different miracles, right? Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He had his people were prided themselves on poetry. So the Quran, and it's preserved until today, we can actually go back and verify that this poetry is the most like mind-boggling, like impossible, like never before seen. It invents a lot of new like rules that just transcend every poetry that they've ever had, basically, right? So this is a miracle of poetry. And you can see in the life and times of the prophet that whenever he would recite the Quran, like the other person would have they had no choice but to be like, they would like low-key, they know it's true, like they always like admit it like low-key, but they just reject it anyways,
Low-key.
right? Yeah, they're like oh, I mean, but like it must just be a magic or something, like like they can't explain it. That's the point, right? So yeah, I hope that gives some, like,
yeah.
I'm not sure, like it's really hard to
That gives me a good idea of what is critical for you in belief.
yeah, like what you would look at and do more research into. It's like a direction, right? Because it's hard for me to go, like, I'm not like trained in this at all. So and this is like my first time doing an interview, so I can't like really give the points like a trained person would, right? So
Gotcha.
So my belief is deeply personal, but it has to be more than that. I believe in the scriptures. I believe in that God has proven himself through all types of different aspects. And I believe that there is one true God. I believe in Jesus Christ. And I believe that he is the only way to salvation, the only way to eternity. He is the way, the truth, the life. And I think he proved that in the way that he lived, in the fact that he died, and in the victory that he rose again. And so if that's true, and if I genuinely do believe that, then I cannot be passive towards that. It has to affect everything about me. It has to change me. It has to motivate me. And so, I respect that there are men who are good husbands who don't know Jesus. But I believe that I'm the best husband, the best dad, the best person because of who God has instructed me to be, who his word tells me I should be, how I live that out. And so I believe that. I can try and argue it, and but I also know like that can't be taken away from me. I genuinely believe in who God is. I believe in the power that he's presented around us, and I believe in Christ his son. And so that's radically changed me, and it kind of serves as my compass in all of life.
Okay. Well, thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
For the conversation.
yeah, thank you as well.
I hope this was interesting to watch. If you'd like to see Irfan come back, or perhaps even speaking to his imam, then please comment down below what questions you would like to see answered. But I would like to speak to him on the very questions he raised with how we can trust the Quran, the test that the Quran gives itself, the different tests there are, and also about the start of Islam. He did make the point during this interview that it was the unification of the belief in God and the transformation that Muhammad brought through that unity that made society a better place. And that is a claim that I would personally like to challenge, although I was only performing an interview during this video. The question of this Islam that has been articulated by Irfan and by most young Muslims that live in the States, even someone like him that's lived overseas as well, if they actually have a true view of Islam, or if it has become Christianized, or in some ways moderate. I would like to have another conversation and go over this, so please subscribe and stay tuned if that's something that you would be interested in. That's it. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and have a good rest of your day.